Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Bear with Nicole. I'm Nicole Hancock, your host and student midwife, sharing insights to help you navigate the complexities of preparing for labor and birth on various topics. I'll draw from experiences, gathered resources, and my midwifery education in this podcast. Whether you're expecting or supporting someone through their birthing journey, this podcast is packed with valuable information to empower and inform you. So grab a comfy seat, maybe a notepad, and we'll dive into today's topic together. Welcome to Bear with Nicole, your go-to podcast for midwifery and childbirth. In this episode, we'll delve into the significance of doulas in contemporary birth spaces. Despite the long-standing tradition of feminine support during childbirth, the landscape of birth has evolved. For those unfamiliar, a doula is a trained professional who provides emotional, physical, and informational support to women and birthing individuals before, during, and after childbirth. We'll explore why having a doula in the birth space can be incredibly beneficial, whether you're giving birth in a hospital, birth center, or home. We'll also delve into some common concerns and misconceptions surrounding doulas and the providers of their clients, and introduce a growing concept that will benefit families. I must note that unlike some of my peers who have been doulas, I have not. However, I'm a mom of 3, with all births being natural and spontaneous. I also want to point out that I've not hired a doula for any of my births, as my gradual journey into my own birth experiences, and likely leading to a bias, leads me to support and believe that innately, we all have the ability to experience and react to birth as our own doula. However, I do recognize that current social, cultural, and health climates call for support beyond ourselves and our partners. While not healthcare professionals in the medical sense, they complement the care midwives provide and benefit other healthcare providers. Today, expectant parents have diverse options for creating their birth team, including the inclusion of doulas. As we explore the pros and cons of doula support, we'll consider their role in advocating for birthing individuals and mitigating unnecessary interventions during childbirth. Now let's focus on hospital birth space and examine the crucial role doulas play. According to Falconi 2022, traditionally, childbirth support involved multiple female figures assisting the birthing mother. However, with the evolution of medical practices, birth has evolved. Modern hospital births often present challenges, with all pregnancies, regardless of their risk level, being treated as high risk in their policy and procedures. Here's where the doula comes in, a key player in navigating the complexities of hospital births. According to Salinas 2022, with their extensive experience and training, doulas offer invaluable support advocating for birthing individuals and reducing the likelihood of unnecessary interventions like C-sections or use of Pitocin. They give personal and emotional support to moms and birthing families, usually having met their clients well before the baby's birth date. They sit with families to discuss their birth plan, the negotiables and non-negotiables, and when to be encouraged to embrace birth. In the hospital, doulas are an extended voice from client to nurse and doctor. Shifting the birth space, there is a rise in contemporary need for midwifery and recognition of out-of-hospital births across the United States. While the modern midwife's role is to act in place of an obstetrician, holding a license to attend births and provide clinical care here in California, it's important to remember the historical role of a midwife, being with women, in the same sense that a doula is with women. It's been recognized that nearly merging roles, aside from clinical aspects, can create turf wars over their mutual client. However, California midwives are liable for their client's safety, monitoring their labor and birth in normal physiological birth, and providing comfort and support. Midwifery is an established space where normal physiological birth is highly regarded and prepared for, and modern midwifery practices already reduce obstetrical violence and medical interventions. So while the need for a doula may be less needed in terms of medical violence, It's plausible that the doula may be needed to culturally, physically, and emotionally support the labor and birth. And according to Lucas and Wright 2019, doulas navigating the different birth spaces, having communication and respect for the clinical providers, assists in the multi-dimensional relationship for all birth teams. Now to talk about that growing concept that will benefit families. The Daddy University of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania has a Doulas for Dads mission program, providing fathers with fundamental understanding and education of the mother's or partner's needs in and after labor and birth. Joshua Liston of Melanated Daddy created a dad doula program in Milwaukee designed to support fathers and other non-birthing parents as they transition into parenthood. Traditional female doulas can tap into the market of providing education to dads, allowing them to become more involved in the overall aspects of their family, increasing family stability and satisfying the disposition of midwives, that fathers belong in and are intricate to the normal physiological birthing process, according to St. George and Fletcher 2011. I have Masha Kubrak, a doula and student peer, here to offer insight on navigating birth spaces as a doula. Masha, can you talk with me about how you navigate the birth spaces and different providers?
Yeah. So a lot of the births that I attend as a doula, or most all of them, have been hospital births. But I've attended hospital births as like a private doula, and then I'm a volunteer doula as part of a hospital program. And the way that I navigate those providers are very different because when I come in with a private client, I'm kind of like I'm still the last person in the room, but I'm like on a kind of a level with the client where I'm speaking with them, I'm for them. Whereas when I'm in the hospital room as a volunteer, I'm bottom tier in the room. And so it's like kind of different dynamics. Nurses love doulas though, at least most nurses that I have come across. They're all very happy when a patient has a nurse because they know that it kind of makes their job easier. With doctors, it's a little different. Some of them love it and some of them don't, especially when things get like tense and there's like discussions being made about what's going to be the next, option. What are we moving along with? Like when there's talk of C-section, I always like to jump in and ask questions. And I know that this is kind of like a controversial subject in the doula world of like, do you advocate for your client or no? There's doulas who say, no, I just teach my client to advocate for themselves. But then there's a whole other party of doulas that are like, well, I'm going to advocate for my client. And I know that for myself, I've advocate for my clients because as much as you can teach somebody to advocate when they've been in labor for 36 hours, they don't have the energy to do that. Or if their baby has had D-cells all day and they're distressed, like you need someone who has a calm and reassuring voice and a reasonable mind to come in. And I just like to ask questions. I like to ask the provider questions that maybe the client wouldn't ask themselves. And so sometimes that kind of trips them out because they're like, oh, this person knows and they're asking the right questions. And so now they have to like kind of explain more so than they would if I wasn't there. So that kind of creates an interesting dynamic. But in general, I've been pretty well received amongst all the providers that I've worked with. And I think it's just because, like, from the beginning of the birth, I like to introduce myself, kind of, obviously create like a respectful atmosphere. And so with midwives love doulas. And because with midwives, you're not fighting for anything really, they're there to help their client have a vaginal birth, which is what most doula clients want. You're just there for the client. You can completely like dissolve into the background and just be with the client. And so it's completely different and a whole more relaxed of just an atmosphere as a doula in that room.
Awesome. Yeah. One of the initial kind of points that I was going to bring up, and it didn't make it into the earlier presentation that I had, was the flight or fight mode, and how, when you're in that, you kind of you throw out everything you've learned. So that goes for the birthing person, that goes for the partner. So it's good to have somebody who's consecutively in the hospital space over and over and over to, kind of release that flight or fight and be the one that brings them centered and brings them back to what they planned. So I love that you said that. I'd like to hear your thoughts on dueling the dad, as I mentioned.
I love that you brought that up because on one of my first private clients, one of the biggest reasons she wanted a doula was because she wanted somebody to like guide her husband and explain to him kind of the whole process and then help me help him help her. um and so I kind of made it like a mandatory thing with my private clients that I have 3 prenatals with them and the last one is with the partner. And we go over the birth plan so that they know exactly what their wife wants for her birth. And then we go over kind of like how to behave in a birth because I've seen some obviously first time dads who have never experienced a birth and how they react or the kind of things that they say because of a lack of preparation or childbirth education. It just kind of, it's the wrong thing to say. It doesn't help the mom. And so as a doula, I see these things, I take them into account. And so I usually go over like things that you can do to like obviously physically help her. Like I show them the double hip squeeze. I show them, tell them about different comfort techniques. But a lot of it is just like talking about that how you are in this space is going to affect the outcome of the birth. Your job is to be a fearless presence in this room. Your job is to like guard this space for her and you need to show up for her. And you need to believe in her, especially when we're talking about, vaginal births, home births, like you need to, even if the doubt crosses your mind, even if things are getting tough, you need to believe in her and fake it till you make it, because that will affect her if she hears you question or doubt, or Lord forbid, bring up C-section, which I've had in a birth and I was so mad at the dad. and
Wow.
yeah. And so I kind of go over that. And I think it really does help. And it's also really cool to think that as midwives and doulas, when you know both partners, you have like the power to kind of gently nudge them, which could help them in their future parenting, if you can help create that like space and atmosphere for them to just be together in the birth. And I always tell them, like, I'm going to make sure that you are helping her and I'm going to be in the background switching out if necessary and kind of doing other things. Um, but her main source of comfort and strength is you, because you are in the relationship with her and this is your baby, not mine. And so far, I think that has worked greatly, especially in longer births where, like in early labor, the dad is very much present for her. And then in active labor, we'll just switch out because, obviously he's tired too. But it really helps kind of dealing the dad. And I think we need more dads who are doulas.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited to hear that that's supportive. I love that there are men who are paving the way for themselves too. I was really excited to find that information.
Mm-hmm.
We did have one question, but I just wanted to limit it that way we can wrap it up a bit. I know that as I mentioned, you're a student midwife as well. So you're shifting from doula to a midwife. And I was going to ask how you, are experiencing that shift into the identity, but you did mention that you're just coming into the assisting phase. So there's, yeah. How do you feel? If you can just briefly just tell me how you feel about that and if there's any concerns that you might have with shifting.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna try to make this brief, but I became a doula as I was already in midwifery school because it was part of the requirement. But I was mostly like in phase 1, I was only attending doula births and I'm just now starting to assist. So I was already kind of going into the doula work as like thinking like a midwife, which was challenging in some births because obviously I'm not the main provider, but I'm thinking of like, okay, what would I do? And so that kind of I need to like sift through that and be like, okay, I'm not responsible for this outcome. And I just need to help them make decisions and I need to let their provider do their job. But I also think that being a doula has helped me cultivate the heart of a midwife because you are not responsible for anything. And so I've been to births where you can just sit and observe. And I think that is something that midwives and student midwives can benefit a lot from is just to watch women in labor and watch it unfold and see how it progresses, but also just being in birth teaches you a lot about yourself. And so, especially like the long births, the hard births, a lot comes out in you as a doula, as a midwife. And I think, like you said, their roles are very similar. And I do think that doulas kind of have like, they kind of encapsulate everything that a midwife should be because they're just there for the woman without all the medical roles. And so, yeah, being a doula has definitely helped me be a better midwife. In the future, I think it'll be able to navigate of like how much like do I give emotionally to this client where it becomes too much, that I'm neglecting my medical responsibilities. But I don't know if that will be too much of a problem.
Yeah.
I think more midwives like that.
Well, awesome. I like I mentioned, I've not doulaed. I did take the doula program we're supposed to, but with my schedule, and lack of clients or marketing, I don't know, one of those, I just haven't had any clients for it. So, but I'm so glad that you were able to step into that. Thank you, Masha, for joining me on this episode of Bear with Nicole. And then you can stick around. I do have some final tips. I just want to wrap up the episode with these final tips. If you're birthing at a hospital, I encourage you to hire a doula because this space is extremely medicalized. And while I understand people use hospitals for various reasons when giving birth, I just want to note that it's very important. You can benefit from having them there. They're not just for low risk birthers; they're valuable in high risk situations as well, even for planned C-sections and things like that. And they will research for you so that you don't have the anxiety and any information gets padded before it lands on you. They are going to be an extension of your voice and offer reminders to your partner about your birth plan. If your birth is at a birth center or your home, you can ask a midwife for recommendations for doulas that they work with. And then for both providers, have your doula attend your prenatal visit with you at least one time. Your doula will provide continuity of care, which is helpful when the nurses change shifts and midwives take a short break from the continuous care that they provide. The topic of doulas could be a whole series, but the goal of this episode is to get an overview of the relationship dynamics in having a doula present and what it means for modern families and midwives. I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions, stories to share, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes. Thank you for tuning in to Bear with Nicole. Stay empowered, stay informed, and most importantly, embrace the incredible journey of bringing new life into this world. Until next time, take care and remember, you have the strength to bear with grace. This is Nicole Hancock, your host and student midwife, signing off. Until our next episode. All references will be provided in the show notes. This podcast has been self-produced by Nicole Hancock. The intro music is song Wide Open by Brent Wood via Soundstripe.